Over the 20-year history of the Battlefield franchise, there have been many great maps worthy of praise. Some maps become legendary, icons themselves of the Battlefield series and worth remembering for their balance, uniqueness, and special gameplay. This is the story of the best maps of Battlefield. I apologize in advance. I am not missing this opportunity. Did that prevent this video from being monetized? Yep. Was it worth it? Totally. Launched as one of Battlefield 1's base maps, Ballroom Blitz is a wild design with a lot going on despite its medium scale. Fought between the US and German Empire factions during a 1918 offensive, this location centers on a massive chateau in the French countryside, which provides one of the most unique map environments in the game. I mean, let's get right to the big deal here. This chateau is incredible. From its structural design to its limited verticality, multiple pathing options, and beautiful art decoration, it is already something which sticks in a player's mind. Yet, unlike some other maps with a large centerpiece attraction, Ballroom Blitz does something more. It doesn't limit itself to being the primary objective location. Some other maps have a single major concept like this, slapped on another close single flag on either side and called it a day. Here, the chateau exists and lets players choose to fight inside, on top, or all around, while providing the freedom to avoid it if they prefer to focus on the 4 other flags around the map. And before we even get to any of those other flags, let's look at this memorable structure. Ballroom Blitz's chateau dominates the center of the map layout, which also includes vast spaces for the exterior gardens, ponds, and yards. This paved outer walkway is filled with statues, concrete walls, and hedgerows, providing cover for players moving about, at least when not targeted from the courtyard rooftop. I'll admit that perhaps some additional large-scale cover in the form of larger statues in these areas might have been needed, if only to break line of sight. Nevertheless, these paths dip periodically at staircases to the lower grounds, offering more protection and a height advantage. The chateau proper consists of 2 parts, the courtyard and the central building. The courtyard on the south side is a large square yard surrounded by a covered walkway. Rooftop access to the entire structure is achieved via a few ladders, which are typically watched by players already up above, and, frequently, booby-trapped with anti-personnel mines. This rooftop provides an excellent view of the surrounding area, including into the structure's smaller interior courtyard. But cover up here isn't exactly perfect, and that's a good thing. The lower walkway is elevated a bit, and barricades and barbed wire are meant to discourage players from leaping up into it. The central building is a complex of manor wings connected by interior hallways, smaller courtyards, and large gates. At the very center of the main building is the keynote feature of the map containing the C flag, the ballroom itself. Easily accessible from multiple angles inside and out, and with large open windows surrounding it, the single square room can be a grenade fest and mine trap, but the action is always a constant. Part of what makes the chateau so popular is its ability to be a defensive fortress. 2 AA guns and additional field guns can be found in the yard, along with a sentry kit in the ballroom. The chateau's east and west access routes are grindy single hallway experiences, akin to Metro and Locker. 5 main portcullises, a word I don't think I've ever used in a practical setting, are found around the manor. These entrances are large enough for vehicles to enter through, creating some chaotic moments when tanks try to barge inside. However, the large iron gates on each can be raised and lowered using the controls on the inside walls, preventing this and forcing an infantry grind. On the chateau's northern exterior, players can hug the walls around to the gate on the other side, usually resulting in a pretty effective flank. But this northern face does lack cover, and it can be a dangerous journey if enemies have the same idea. The building does have one negative though, and that is its rooftops, which, while otherwise inaccessible from the ground, can be mounted by bailing out of planes or the behemoth. The size, connectivity, and flat level of most of the roofs allow for entire squads to wander and maintain a sneaky, largely advantageous position for most of the round. This can cause frustration for enemies near the point or approaching the building. As a unique environment, the chateau truly stands out, but remember, this is only one flag of the 5 total. The other points are unique in their own right, with different themes and cover completing a great map experience. First, the A objective, the Servants' Quarters. Coming from the US side of the battle, this can be considered the team's gimme flag. It is a walled compound surrounding a series of houses, some of which have been reduced to rubble. The buildings still standing provide excellent cover near the point, but outside of the walls, the fields are far more open as they roll down toward the B flag. Even though this point is occasionally difficult to break out from, some impact craters in the hill nearby provide additional cover. Interestingly, the A flag is the only one which diverges in any major direction from the linearity of the rest, being much further south of the B objective. Next is the aforementioned B flag, the LaCroix Pond. This lengthy stretch of land on the low ground between the servants' quarters and the chateau may be scenic, but it can be a death trap. The flag sits on the edge of the main pond. The Elevata Plaza just adjacent to it contains cover in the form of concrete walls, garden hedges, statues, and a number of artillery guns which are within the capture radius. But much of the exterior cover surrounding the pond can be destroyed throughout a round, making it a desolate location at times. A more problematic issue are players located on the high ground at the servants' quarters, or more commonly from the chateau courtyard roof and outer walls, which have a clear line of sight to dominate enemies in this zone while being protected themselves. That is not to say that players cannot move up to the chateau walls, but it certainly may take some smoke or covering fire to make it happen. On the German side of the chateau, the battle from the gates and hallways shifts into a large open plaza before connecting to the D flag, the North Garden. Protected by several layers of walls and bushes, the objective sits within the radius of the central monument. The walls here are the main source of cover for players, although the hills nearby do offer a minor alternative. Given the flag's location a bit further north on the map, it is less vulnerable to attack from the chateau's courtyard rooftops. The lack of a significant verticality advantage here makes this flag one of the primary locations fought over on the map, as it is a good staging ground to assault the western entrances of the manor. Lastly, the final flag is the railway hub, which is probably a theme you would least expect on a map like this. This makes it all the more appreciated since it's not some generic group of houses. A minor station and a few support structures provide some needed cover, while a set of 2 trains sit on 2 tracks in front. This provides even more distinction and protection to the area, and at times creates a cat and mouse situation when trying to root out enemies. The train station, the garden, the ballroom, and its chaotic chateau, the pond, and the servants' quarters are all unique locations allowing for a wide array of playstyles within a fairly linear layout. Ultimately, this map sits in the best maps category over other notable Battlefield 1 designs like, say, St. Quentin's Scar. But I submit to you all that Ballroom Blitz does everything that St. Quentin does, just better. Like St. Quentin's Scar, it is a combined arms map which contains all vehicle types within the game. Multiple aircraft, tanks, horses, and light transports. However, it does a far better job providing exclusive lanes and hot zones for those vehicles. On St. Quentin, where tanks could sit on hilltops viewing barren slopes with minimal cover and no line of sight breaks, The elevation changes here of both the exterior gardens and most importantly the imposing walls of the chateau provide immense amount of cover and create a great infantry armor dynamic. Meanwhile, the aircraft of Ballroom have a more difficult but predictable experience. Given the linear layout, planes must linger on their side of the map for protection, as pushing too far for kills makes them increasingly vulnerable to the map's considerable amount of AA emplacements. It doesn't make them useless, but it makes the push for flags by teams even more rewarding in this regard. This same factor limits the effectiveness of Muramet's heavy bombers, which are already mitigated in their damage against infantry thanks to the sizable interior of the chateau. The linearity also minimizes the damage and lifespan of the airship behemoth reinforcements. Already a divisive gameplay element, the AA and structure of Ballroom's chateau offers both protection and enough counterfire to bring it down in short order. However, when one does make it into a round, the airships actually have enough time to fulfill their intended purpose. At the very least, they allow enough of a distraction and support for a team to recapture their side of the map, minus the chateau. This is as opposed to St. Quentin, where these airships often flail about aimlessly and piloted to some random objective by a moronic teammate, and which the winning team usually recaptures shortly thereafter anyway. Ballroom Blitz, in addition to containing a memorable and defining map feature, unique flag sets, and intrinsic balance, also was simply beautiful. Whether the lighting shines through on a clear day or is partly cloudy, the shadows cast by the marble columns and tall spires add additional atmosphere to the map. And during periods of light rain, you can even experience the majestic double rainbow. Even the largely hated fog weather effects can elevate the experience of the map at times, since it prevents the rooftop campers along the courtyard walls from seeing players advance from either direction. Listen, the map isn't perfect. By any account, it is not unbecoming of full captures difficult to recover from. There are certainly areas needlessly empty where there probably should have been at least a smidgen of cover. Certain inaccessible rooftops can be difficult to eliminate players from. Firing angles from the balconies can be overly annoying. But the biggest offender of Ballroom Blitz is the ballroom! You call this a ballroom? How am I supposed to entertain France's finest nobles in such a tiny space? Am I a mere peasant? Regardless of minor issues, Ballroom Blitz is unique, largely balanced, picturesque, and a sandbox full of all of your favorite Battlefield 1 tools. All flags but one have substantial options for cover, yet are all distinct on this fairly linear tract of land. The verticality is finite, but enough to create spaces for both close and long-range engagements. And that chateau is something downright special. It's an asset which enhances nearly everything about the gameplay with minimal hindrances. It is incredibly memorable, and elevates Ballroom Blitz above many other maps of Battlefield 1.